I wasn't supposed to be at the lake house that weekend. If things had gone according to plan, I would have been sitting in my apartment, catching up on work and maybe ordering takeout. Instead, I'm now in a tiny one-bedroom place I can barely afford. My family won't speak to me, and I've got this constant knot in my stomach that never goes away. It all started because my plans fell through. I'm the youngest in my family, 29F. My brother, Kyle, 33M, has always been the golden child. You know the type. The straight-A student, the star athlete, the one who somehow lands every promotion, every opportunity, every ounce of parental pride. I love him, or at least I used to, but he's always been different with me. He could be charming, but also condescending. He'd brush off my accomplishments as cute or lucky, never quite seeing me as an equal. Kyle married Emily, 31F, 5 years ago. From day one, Emily was everything I thought my brother didn't deserve. Kind, grounded, with a sharp sense of humor that could light up a room. She never treated me like Kyle's little sister. Instead, she treated me like my own person. We'd grab coffee together, send each other dumb memes, and occasionally have late-night phone calls when she needed to vent about work or life. I always thought at least someone in the family actually gets me. That summer, our parents decided to plan a last-minute getaway to the family's lake house. It's about 2 hours out of the city, surrounded by pine trees and the smell of damp earth. The kind of place that's always been more Kyle's scene than mine. I told everyone I couldn't make it because my team at work had a big deadline. That was true, until Thursday night, when the client suddenly pushed the deadline back. By Friday morning, I was staring at my weekend calendar and realized it was wide open. The idea popped into my head. What if I just showed up? I imagined the look on Emily's face. She'd be thrilled. My parents would be surprised. Kyle would probably make some sarcastic comment, but whatever. So I packed a bag, grabbed a bottle of wine as a peace offering, and drove out. The sun was low in the sky by the time I reached the gravel road that winds toward the lake house. It's one of those long, bumpy driveways lined with trees, where you can't see the house until you're almost there. I parked my car a little ways down so they wouldn't hear the engine. I wanted the surprise to be perfect. But as soon as I got out, I noticed something strange. No music, no laughter. Usually, when my family's all together, it's loud. Someone's cooking, someone's yelling for someone else to grab them a drink. There's music blasting from the speakers. Instead, I heard quiet, just the soft rush of wind through the leaves. Then, faintly, I picked up voices. 2 of them, a man and a woman. Curious, I walked slowly toward the back deck, my sneakers crunching lightly on the gravel path. The voices grew clearer, low, intimate, almost like they were sharing a secret. I smiled for a second, thinking maybe Kyle and Emily were having one of those sweet moments couples sometimes have. But when I rounded the corner, my smile froze. Kyle was sitting at the patio table, leaning in close to a woman who was most definitely not Emily. She had long, dark hair that caught the late afternoon sunlight, and she was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting over his. It wasn't the kind of hand-holding you do with a friend. It was the slow, familiar way lovers touch each other. And then they kissed. Not a quick peck. Not even a "we shouldn't be doing this" kiss. This was deep, slow, and practiced. The kind of kiss that says, "We've done this 100 times before." I froze behind the deck railing, my heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood in my ears. My brain immediately went into denial. Maybe it was a cousin I didn't know about? A close friend? But no, you don't kiss your cousin like that. I wanted to turn around and walk back to my car. I wanted to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But my feet stayed rooted to the spot, and my ears strained to catch what they were saying. The woman's voice was low and teasing. "So, Mexico's still on?" Kyle grinned. That smug, confident grin I've hated since childhood. "Of course. I told Emily I have a conference in Dallas next month. She bought it completely." The woman giggled, leaning closer. "You're a terrible liar. But God, I love you." Then Kyle said something that made my stomach twist. "I'm just waiting for the right moment to leave her. I want to make sure she doesn't get anything in the divorce." I felt my breath catch. Emily had quit her job last year to help Kyle with his business. She'd given up her career to support him, and he was planning to leave her with nothing. My hands were shaking. I realized I was gripping the wine bottle so tightly my knuckles had gone white. That was the moment I knew my weekend wasn't going to be a happy surprise. It was going to be the start of something I couldn't undo. I stood there for what felt like hours, though it couldn't have been more than a few minutes. My legs were locked in place. My heart was hammering so loud I was half convinced they would hear it from the deck. Kyle leaned back in his chair, still holding the woman's hand, his tone casual, like he was talking about the weather. "I've just got to move some money around first. I don't want Emily sniffing anything out before I'm ready." The woman, I still didn't know her name, tilted her head, smiling at him in a way that made my stomach churn. "And she's not suspicious at all?" Kyle chuckled. "Emily? No. She trusts me completely. She's too busy redecorating the house to even notice when I'm gone. That's what I love about her. She's easy to distract." He said it like it was a punchline, like the woman he'd vowed to love and honor was some clueless mark in a long con. I wanted to storm out right then, yell at him, scream, demand to know what the hell he thought he was doing. But I didn't move. My instincts told me that if I confronted him now, with her sitting there, it would be my word against his later, and Kyle was always better at spinning a story. The conversation turned softer after that, words I couldn't quite make out. I heard bits and pieces. Next month, beach, no looking back, and then more laughter, more kissing. I realized I'd been holding my breath, and when I finally let it out, my exhale sounded too loud in the quiet evening air. I stepped back carefully, my shoes sinking slightly into the soft dirt. My mind was a mess of questions. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Did anyone else know? By the time I made it back to my car, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely get the keys into the ignition. I drove a few miles down the road before pulling over into an empty gas station lot. I just sat there, staring at the dashboard, my grip still locked around the neck of the wine bottle. Emily. Her face flashed in my mind. The way she'd smile when she talked about Kyle. The way she'd gush about his business sense. The way she defended him during family squabbles even when he didn't deserve it. She adored him. And now I had to decide whether to shatter her world. That night I barely slept. My phone buzzed just after midnight. It was a text from Emily. "Emily. Wish you were here. Sis yellow heart sunsets perfect tonight." The words hit me like a punch. She had no idea that while she was sitting somewhere watching the sky turn pink over the lake, her husband was out on the deck with another woman, plotting how to take everything from her. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before settling on a simple, "Miss you too. We'll have a lake weekend soon." The lie tasted bitter, but I couldn't tell her in a text. I wasn't even sure how to start. The next morning, I decided to call Kyle. I figured maybe I could scare him into ending it, convince him to come clean before Emily found out another way. He didn't answer the first time, or the second. On the third try, he picked up. His voice was sharp, impatient. "What, Lena?" I took a deep breath. "I saw you at the lake house with her. I heard what you said about leaving Emily and making sure she gets nothing." Silence. I could hear faint static on the line, and then a low, almost amused chuckle. "You don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Kyle. I saw you. I heard you. I'm not making this up." His tone shifted, dropping lower. "You're going to keep your mouth shut. This is none of your business. She's my friend. She's family. She's my wife. And you will regret it if you say one word to her." There was something in the way he said it, not just annoyance, but something darker. A warning. Before I could reply, he hung up. I stared at my phone, my pulse racing. For most of the day, I kept going back and forth. Was I overreacting? Was it really my place to interfere? But every time I thought about staying quiet, I pictured Emily's smile, her trust, her belief that Kyle was the kind of man who would never hurt her. By evening, my decision was made. If I was going to tell her, I needed proof. The next morning, I woke up with a single thought pounding in my head. If I told Emily right now, Kyle could deny everything. He could twist my words, make me look jealous, bitter, or unstable. He'd been doing that to me in small ways my whole life, manipulating conversations until I was questioning my own memory. I needed proof, something undeniable. I waited until I was sure Kyle and Emily were still at the lake house. My parents' group chat was full of casual photos from the weekend. Emily by the dock, my mom holding a plate of burgers, Kyle standing by the grill like the picture of a loving husband. It made my skin crawl. By late afternoon, I'd formed a plan. I drove out to the lake again, but this time I parked even farther down the road, where the trees were thick enough to hide my car. I wore dark jeans and a hoodie, not because I thought Kyle would call the cops if he saw me, but because I wanted to blend into the shadows. The gravel crunched under my sneakers as I crept along the driveway. My heart was pounding, each beat echoing in my ears. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just observing, but it still felt like I was about to break some unwritten law. When I reached the edge of the backyard, I crouched behind the thick trunk of an old pine tree. From there, I had a clear view of the deck. The sun was dipping lower, casting long orange shadows across the boards. And there they were, Kyle and the woman. This time she was sitting in his lap, her arms draped around his neck. He was holding a glass of wine, gesturing animatedly as he talked. I pulled out my phone, switched to video, and hit record. The first few seconds were shaky. My hands were trembling so badly I thought I might drop the phone, but I forced myself to steady it. The audio wasn't crystal clear, but it was enough to catch certain phrases. Kyle, when we get to Mexico, I'm not answering my phone, no matter who calls. Woman, what if she figures it out before then? Kyle, she won't. Trust me, she's clueless. I zoomed in, capturing their faces, their kiss, the way he brushed her hair back from her face like he'd done it 100 times before. Just as I was starting to feel confident, the woman shifted and glanced toward the yard. For one heart-stopping second, I thought she'd seen me. My breath caught, and I flattened myself against the tree, praying the shadows would hide me. Kyle said something that made her laugh, and she turned back to him. I exhaled silently, my pulse still racing. I stayed there for almost 10 minutes, recording everything, the touches, the whispered plans, the way they said we like they were already building a future together. Finally, Kyle stood up, taking her hand. Come on, let's go inside before anyone gets back. They disappeared into the house, the sliding glass door closing behind them. I stopped recording, my thumb hovering over the save icon like it was a detonator. I had what I needed. As I made my way back to the car, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting Kyle to burst out of the trees like some horror movie villain. But the only sounds were the crunch of gravel and the distant hum of cicadas. Once I was safely in my car with the doors locked, I replayed the video. The quality wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Enough to prove I wasn't imagining things. Enough to shatter Emily's life. On the drive home, my hands shook so badly I had to grip the wheel at 10 and 2 like a nervous teenager on her first driving test. When I got back to my apartment, I sat on the couch with the phone in my lap for nearly an hour, staring at Emily's contact photo. The two of us smiling with iced coffees in hand, from a summer afternoon 2 years ago. I knew that once I sent this to her, there would be no going back. Finally, I typed a message. I need to talk to you. It's important. I attached the video but didn't hit send yet. My thumb hovered over the screen, my stomach in knots. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Kyle. We need to talk. Tonight. When I saw Kyle's name flashing on my screen, my first instinct was to let it go to voicemail. But a part of me, the stubborn, curious part that had gotten me into trouble more than once, wanted to hear what he had to say. I swiped to answer. What do you want, Kyle? His voice was calm, almost too calm. You and I need to have a little chat, face to face. Tonight. I hesitated. About what? A low chuckle. You know about what? I'll come to your place. Around 8. No, we can talk on the phone. I'm not asking, Lena. And then the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the black screen, a knot forming in my stomach. There was a tone in his voice I didn't like. Something cold, final, like he'd already decided how this conversation would go. For the next 2 hours, I paced my apartment, replaying every possible scenario in my head. I thought about calling Emily, but I didn't want to dump this on her without being sure what Kyle was planning to say. I thought about ignoring him, but a bigger part of me knew he'd just show up anyway. At exactly 8 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Kyle was standing there in a dark jacket, his hair still damp, like he'd just showered. He didn't smile. He just stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door, my back pressed against it. "What are you doing here?" He turned to face me, his eyes scanning the small living room like he was checking for witnesses. "You've been busy, haven't you?" "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play stupid, Lena. You've been snooping, spying on me." I crossed my arms, trying to look steadier than I felt. "I saw you with her. I heard what you said. You're planning to leave Emily and take everything from her. She deserves to know." His lips curled into a smirk, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You don't know half of what's going on. And if you were smart, you'd stay out of it. If you're so confident, then why are you here threatening me?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because I know you, Lena. You've always been impulsive. You think you're some hero, but you don't think about the consequences. If you tell Emily, you're not just ruining my marriage, you're ruining our family. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. You'll be the one who destroyed everything." I felt my pulse in my throat, but I forced myself to meet his gaze. "No, Kyle, you already destroyed it." For a second, something flickered in his expression. Not guilt, not shame, but irritation. Like I was an obstacle he hadn't expected to push back so hard. He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Delete whatever you've got. Walk away, and we can both forget this happened." "And if I don't?" He straightened, his smirk returning. "Then you'll regret it." The words hung in the air like smoke. I opened my mouth to respond, but he turned and walked toward the door. Just before he stepped out, he looked over his shoulder. "Think about it, Lena. You've got until tomorrow." The door closed behind him with a quiet click, but the sound echoed in my head. I stood in the silence for what felt like forever, my mind racing. By the time I finally sat down, my phone buzzed. A new message from Emily. "Hey, can you talk? Something feels off with Kyle tonight." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. It was time to decide. Emily's text burned on my screen. I didn't answer right away. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but my mind was a mess. A swirling tangle of fear, guilt, and determination. If I told her the truth now, I'd be crossing a line I could never uncross. But if I stayed silent, I'd be letting Kyle tighten his grip around her life, piece by piece, until she had nothing left. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey," she said, her voice shaky. "Can you come over? I don't know what's going on, but Kyle's been acting weird since dinner." "Weird how?" I asked. "He's quiet. Too quiet. He just left. Said he had to check something, and wouldn't tell me what. I feel like something's wrong." "Emily, listen to me." The words caught in my throat. "How do you tell your best friend that her husband, your own brother, is plotting to strip her of everything she owns? That he's been lying to her for months?" "Lena," she prompted. I swallowed hard. "I think you need to start packing a bag. Tonight." There was a long pause. "You're scaring me." "Good. You need to be scared. There's something you don't know about Kyle, and if I don't tell you now." A loud bang interrupted me. Emily yelped. "What was that?" I asked sharply. I don't know," came from the front door. I could hear her footsteps on the hardwood floor, the creak of the hinges. "Oh my God. Lena, it's..." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. For a moment, I just sat there frozen, phone in hand, the last echo of her voice still in my ears. Then instinct took over. I grabbed my keys, my jacket, and ran for the car. The streets blurred past in streaks of yellow streetlight. Every red light felt like a personal attack. Every slow driver in front of me like an accomplice in whatever had just happened. When I pulled up to Emily's house, the porch light was on, and the front door was slightly ajar. That alone was enough to make my stomach clench. "Emily?" I called out, stepping inside. The living room was empty. A glass of wine sat half-finished on the coffee table. The faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen was the only sound. I moved slowly, scanning each corner. No signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken glass. But something felt wrong. Then I noticed it. On the floor near the couch was Emily's phone. The screen was cracked, the call log still open to my number. My pulse pounded in my ears. I picked it up and whispered to myself, "Oh no, 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 no." A faint creak came from upstairs. I froze. "Emily?" I tried again, my voice barely more than a breath. No answer. Step by step, I climbed the staircase, my hand gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles ached. When I reached the landing, I saw a shadow move at the end of the hallway, and then I heard him. "You shouldn't be here, Lena." Kyle's voice, calm, cold, like the one from the phone earlier. He stepped out from the bedroom doorway, blocking my view inside. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and there was something in his hand. A small, dark object I couldn't make out in the dim light. "Where's Emily?" I demanded. His smile was almost lazy. "Safe. For now." "Move. Or what? You'll call the cops?" "Go ahead. By the time they get here, she'll be long gone. And you'll have nothing to prove anything." My mind was racing, calculating, weighing whether I could push past him. But then, from behind him, I heard it. A muffled sob. "Emily." Kyle saw the way my eyes shifted and stepped forward, closing the space between us. "This is your last chance, Lena. Walk away." I didn't answer. I lunged. I don't remember making the decision to move. My body just reacted. 1 second Kyle was smirking. The next I slammed my shoulder into him with everything I had. He stumbled back, hitting the doorframe, and something clattered to the floor. I caught a glimpse of it, black plastic, glinting metal, before it slid under the bed. I tried to push past him, but Kyle recovered fast. His arm shot out, grabbing my wrist in a grip so tight it felt like bone grinding against bone. "You just don't know when to stop, do you?" he growled. "Where is she, Kyle?" I hissed. A muffled cry came from inside the bedroom again. Emily's voice, small, terrified. That sound cut through every ounce of hesitation I had left. I twisted hard, wrenching my wrist free, and shoved him backward with both hands. He hit the wall, and I darted past him into the room. Emily was on the floor, her wrists bound with duct tape, a strip of it over her mouth. Her eyes went wide when she saw me, tears spilling over. I dropped to my knees, tearing at the tape, my fingers trembling. "It's okay. It's okay. I've got you." A heavy hand clamped down on my shoulder, yanking me backward. I hit the floor, my breath knocked out of me. Kyle loomed over me, chest heaving. His calm, smug demeanor was gone now, replaced by something darker, rawer. "You think you can just barge into my life and take her away from me?" he shouted. "Take her away?" I spat back, scrambling to my feet. "You're destroying her life, Kyle. You've been lying to her, setting her up." His eyes narrowed. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know exactly what you're doing, and you're not getting away with it." For a moment we just stood there, breathing hard, locked in a silent standoff. I could feel Emily's eyes on both of us, could hear her muffled whimper behind me. Then Kyle lunged. We collided again, grappling, my hands clawing for his arms as he tried to shove me toward the wall. He was stronger, but desperation made me faster. I ducked under his arm and shoved him toward the bed, sending him sprawling. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed Emily by the arm, hauling her up. "We're leaving. Now." We barely made it 2 steps before Kyle's hand shot out from the floor, catching my ankle. I went down hard, pain shooting up my knee. Emily stumbled forward, almost falling. Kyle scrambled to his feet, blocking the doorway. His face was twisted now, all pretense gone. "Neither of you are going anywhere," he said, his voice low but shaking with fury. And that's when I saw it, the thing that had fallen earlier. The gun. It was lying half under the bed, just inches from me. Kyle saw my gaze and froze. We both moved at the same time. My fingers brushed the grip just as his hand clamped down on my wrist again. He yanked me back, trying to pull me away from it, but I twisted, shoving my elbow into his ribs. He grunted, loosening his hold, and I snatched the gun up. I'd never held one before, but the weight of it in my hands was terrifyingly real. "Move," I said, my voice shaking but loud. Kyle's eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, I thought he might actually back down. But instead, his lips curled into a slow, chilling smile. "You won't use it," he said softly. My finger hovered over the trigger. Emily was behind me, silent, waiting. My pulse thundered in my ears. And then, from somewhere downstairs, came the sound of a door opening. Kyle's smile faltered. Someone else was here. The sound of the front door clicking open echoed up the staircase like a gunshot. Kyle's head snapped toward the hallway, his expression shifting from fury to something colder. Calculation. I didn't lower the gun. Emily was still behind me, trembling so hard I could feel it through the air. Footsteps creaked up the stairs. Slow, deliberate. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. And that somehow made it worse. Kyle straightened, forcing a smirk back onto his face. "Looks like we have company," he said, as if we were all sharing a private joke. "Who is it?" I demanded. He didn't answer. He just glanced toward the doorframe like he was waiting for something, or someone. The steps stopped right outside the bedroom. And then, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked absurdly expensive for this rundown house. His hair was slicked back, his face expressionless except for the faintest trace of a smile. But what made my stomach knot was his eyes. Cold, assessing, like he'd already sized us up and found us unimportant. "You're late," Kyle said to him. "Traffic," the man replied, his voice smooth, almost pleasant. He glanced at me, then at Emily, then finally at the gun in my hand. "Well, this is inconvenient." I tightened my grip, trying to keep my hands from shaking. "Who the hell are you?" The man ignored the question. Instead, he stepped into the room, the scent of some expensive cologne drifting with him. He moved like someone who was completely sure no one here could stop him. "Put it down," he said softly, as if speaking to a child. "Not happening." He sighed, like I just inconvenienced him. "I don't think you understand the situation you're in." Behind me, Emily whispered through the duct tape, her voice garbled but desperate. I could feel her panic rising, and mine wasn't far behind. Kyle, meanwhile, seemed almost relaxed now, like he knew exactly how this was going to play out. The man reached into his jacket. My heart leapt, and I took a step back, aiming the gun at his chest. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a folded envelope and tossed it onto the bed. "That's all you need to know," he said. I didn't look away from him, but my peripheral vision caught the thick paper, the faint bulge inside like it was stuffed with cash, or something equally dangerous. "Take it," he added, "and walk away. Both of you." Emily's muffled sobs filled the room. Kyle smirked again. "See? Easy solution." I didn't move. My instincts were screaming that whatever was in that envelope was just the beginning of something much bigger, and much worse. "What's in there?" I asked. The man's smile widened slightly. "A reason to keep breathing." The room went silent. My finger hovered over the trigger, the air heavy enough to crush us. And then, somewhere outside, in the distance, I heard sirens. Kyle's eyes darted toward the window. The man in the suit finally lost his composure, just for a second. Whatever game they were playing, someone else had just joined the board. The wail of the sirens grew louder, bouncing off the cracked walls of the old house. For the first time since I'd walked in, I saw something that almost looked like fear flash across Kyle's face, but it was gone in an instant. The man in the suit didn't move. Instead, he glanced at his watch. "They're early," he muttered. "That's inconvenient." Emily's eyes went wide. She wriggled against the ropes, desperate, her muffled cries turning frantic. "Help's here," I told her, But even as I said it, a sick feeling twisted in my gut. Something didn't feel right. The sirens cut off suddenly, replaced by the crunch of tires on gravel outside. No loud commands, no car doors slamming. Just silence. Kyle's smirk returned. "Told you," he said quietly. "Not the kind of help you want." The man in the suit stepped to the window and peered through the grimy glass. Then he looked back at Kyle. "You deal with her," he said, jerking his chin toward me. "I'll handle the rest." Before I could react, he was gone, moving with unnerving speed down the hall. I kept the gun up, aiming at Kyle. "Who are they?" Kyle just chuckled. "Let's just say, not everyone with flashing lights is here to protect you." A heavy knock rattled the front door. Then another. "Open up!" a voice called. Deep, commanding, but strangely calm. Kyle tilted his head toward the stairs. "Go on," he said. "Invite them in. See how that works out for you." Every instinct screamed at me to stay put, but Emily's terrified gaze pushed me forward. If there was any chance they were real police, I had to take it. I backed toward the door, keeping Kyle in my sights. Step by step, I moved down the hallway, the floor groaning under my weight. The knock came again, sharper this time. "Ma'am, we know you're in there. Let us in, you're in danger." The words should have comforted me. They didn't. Something in the tone was off. Too rehearsed. Too controlled. I reached the top of the stairs and froze. Through the narrow window by the door, I could see two men in dark uniforms. They looked official, badges gleaming. But their faces, I recognized one of them. I'd seen him earlier that week. Not at a police station. At the same gas station where I'd first spotted Kyle's car. And he wasn't wearing a uniform then. My mouth went dry. They weren't here to save us. Behind me, Kyle's voice floated down the hall. "Looks like you've got a choice to make, sweetheart. And you'd better make it fast." The knock came a third time, louder, harder. "Last chance," the deep voice barked. Emily's muffled scream cut through the air, desperate and urgent. And then, the doorknob started to turn. The doorknob rattled violently. My hands shook as I kept the gun aimed at Kyle. Emily's muffled cries behind me made my stomach twist into knots. The police stepped into the dimly lit hallway, badges flashing, hands raised. "Freeze, everyone." But it didn't feel like authority. Their movements were precise, almost choreographed, like soldiers trained to dominate a room rather than protect it. Kyle's smirk widened. "Meet my friends," he said casually. "I told you it wouldn't be the kind of help you expected." I realized then that the man in the suit, the one who had tossed the envelope, had moved behind Kyle. He was watching the intruders, calculating every muscle coiled. "I don't know what's going on," I shouted, panic rising. "Emily's in danger. She's tied up." Kyle shrugged, mock innocence plastered on his face. "See? She's fine. You're the one in trouble if you make a move." I gritted my teeth. I had to act. Emily was terrified. She needed me. Suddenly, one of the fake cops stepped forward, aiming his weapon. And I realized it wasn't a gun. It was a taser. My stomach dropped. The man in the suit lunged toward them, taking them by surprise. The first intruder hit the floor with a grunt, but the second spun toward me, shouting, "Get down!" I dove to the side, tripping over a rug and crashing against the wall. Emily's muffled whimpers grew louder. Kyle laughed. "Perfect. Chaos. My favorite." The man in the suit engaged the intruders with lightning speed. He moved like a predator, disarming one and striking the other so quickly that I barely had time to comprehend it. I scrambled to Emily, ripping the duct tape from her mouth. She gasped, tears streaming, shaking. "Lena," he said. "I know," I said, cutting her off. "We're getting out of here. Now." But Kyle wasn't moving. He seemed fascinated, as if he wanted to see how this all unfolded before making his next move. The first intruder recovered and charged at me. I fired the gun without thinking. The loud crack echoed in the hallway. The man went down, clutching his shoulder, swearing under his breath. Kyle froze, eyes wide. "That was unwise," he said slowly. The man in the suit grabbed Emily's arm. "Come on," he barked. "Follow me." We ran down the hallway, dodging furniture and debris. The intruders shouted, curses flying, but the man in the suit seemed unstoppable. As we reached the front door, Kyle stepped into our path. His expression had changed, no more smirk, just cold calculation. "You think you can just walk away from this?" Emily clung to me, panicked. "We have to go, Lena. Please." I raised the gun. "Move, or I swear." Kyle laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Do it. Do you really think you can stop me? Or that the world cares about a little sister playing hero?" Before I could answer, the man in the suit pushed past, shoving both of us out the door. "Move," he commanded, urgency in his tone. Outside, the night air hit us like a wave. Sirens in the distance, real ones this time, mixed with the chaos inside. Kyle didn't follow. He stood at the doorway, watching us, his eyes glinting with fury and amusement. "This isn't over," he called. The man in the suit grabbed Emily and me, pulling us toward his car parked in the shadows. "We need to move. Now," he said. Emily looked at me, frightened. Who is he?" I shook my head. I don't know. But we have no choice." As we sped away from the house, I glanced back. Kyle was still there, standing in the doorway, smiling like he had just won a game. And I realized, whatever was about to happen next, we were trapped in a world far bigger and more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. The car's engine purred in the dark, a low hum that made my nerves twist tighter. The man in the suit drove with uncanny precision, weaving through the empty streets like he had a map etched into his memory. Emily was pressed against me, her hands shaking as she clutched mine. "Who is he?" she whispered again. I shook my head. "I don't know, but he saved us. Somehow." He glanced at us through the rearview mirror, his eyes cold but calculating. "You need to understand something," he said. "What just happened back there was a demonstration, not a rescue." I swallowed hard. A demonstration of what? Of power, of leverage, of control. "You think Kyle is the only threat?" I frowned, trying to process. "Then who is the real threat?" The man in the suit's hands never left the wheel. "Kyle is just a pawn. A dangerous one, yes, but only a part of a larger game. You've stumbled into something far beyond your understanding." Emily whimpered. "But why help us then?" He didn't answer immediately. The car turned sharply, tires squealing. Then he said, "Because you're useful. Because I need witnesses, people who understand what's at stake. And because you're stubborn." I like that. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Useful? Witnesses? The weight of his words pressed on me like a physical force. "What do you want from us?" I asked, my voice shaking. His eyes met mine in the mirror. "I want you to survive long enough to see the next move. But survival will not be easy. Kyle is clever, resourceful, and dangerous. You've only seen the surface of his schemes." Emily clung to me tighter, and I felt her trembling. I tried to reassure her, but my own fear mirrored hers. Then he handed me a small envelope, identical to the one he'd tossed on the bed. "Take this. It will keep you alive temporarily. But don't be naive. This world has rules, and you've just begun to learn them." I opened the envelope and found a series of photographs. Kyle with other people. Strangers I didn't recognize, exchanging envelopes, briefcases, and whispered conversations in places I'd never seen. Evidence of plans far beyond our personal drama. I realized then, this wasn't just about Kyle's marriage or Emily's trust. This was a network, a conspiracy, a chain of threats stretching further than I could imagine. "Why us?" I asked. The man in the suit didn't answer immediately. He simply drove in silence, letting the weight of the photographs sink in. Then he said softly, almost conversationally, "Because you interfere. You make choices. You see things others don't. That's dangerous and valuable." Emily whispered, almost to herself, "We can't trust anyone." I nodded, gripping her hand. "We're going to have to," I said. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Trust was a luxury we didn't have. He pulled the car to a stop in a deserted lot. "This is where I leave you for now," he said. "Stay quiet, stay alive, and remember, one wrong move, and Kyle will come for you. The network notices mistakes." I stepped out of the car, Emily clutching me. The night air was cold, heavy, full of threats we couldn't see. He drove off before I could ask more questions, leaving us in darkness. I looked at Emily, her face pale, eyes wide. "What now?" she asked. I swallowed. "Now we survive, and we figure out who the hell we're really up against." Behind us, the city lights flickered like distant warnings, and I knew this was far from over. The city felt different in the dark, almost hostile. Every shadow seemed longer, every sound sharper. Emily and I huddled together in the abandoned lot, clutching the envelope of photographs that the man in the suit had left. "We can't go to the police," I whispered, flipping through the photos. "If he said the network notices mistakes, we'd be dead before they arrived." Emily nodded, trembling. "Then what do we do? How do we stop him?" I had no idea. Not yet. But I knew one thing: we couldn't run blindly. Not when Kyle and whatever network he was part of were this organized. We found a small, empty warehouse a few blocks away. It was perfect. Isolated, quiet, and easy to barricade. We cleared a corner and laid out all the evidence we had. The photos, the video I'd recorded of Kyle and the other woman, and the notes I scribbled from conversations. "We need a plan," I said. "We can't just react anymore. We have to anticipate." Emily looked at me with wide eyes. "You really think we can fight back?" I clenched my jaw. "We don't have a choice." For hours, we went over every detail we had. Every photo, every snippet of conversation, every movement Kyle had made. Patterns began to emerge. Meetings at odd hours, specific locations, exchanges of envelopes. He wasn't just greedy, he was meticulous and ruthless. "We need allies," Emily said finally. "We can't do this alone." I nodded. The thought of reaching out to anyone was terrifying. Who could we trust? The man in the suit? That was a risk I wasn't ready to take yet. The police? Forget it. "Then we do it ourselves," I said, feeling a strange surge of determination. "We observe, gather more evidence, and then expose him. Publicly. Whatever it takes." We spent the next hours preparing. Emily learned how to use my phone's camera in stealth mode, how to hide files, how to communicate securely. I taught her how to check for surveillance devices, how to notice unusual patterns, and how to read subtle signs of manipulation. Things Kyle had used against me for years. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the warehouse windows, we were exhausted but ready. Not safe but ready. And that's when the phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Emily held my hand, eyes wide with fear. "Lena," the voice said on the other end, calm, smooth, and chillingly familiar. "I see you've started your little preparation. Good. But know this, the first mistake, and it won't be Kyle who catches you." The line went dead. I dropped the phone, heart racing. Emily whispered, "Who was that?" I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. We weren't just up against Kyle anymore. We were up against something much, much bigger. And the game had only just begun. We didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every creak, every distant horn, every whisper of wind made our hearts race. The unknown caller's warning echoed in my mind. One mistake, and it wouldn't be Kyle who caught us. By sunrise, Emily and I were ready. We left the warehouse, sticking to the shadows, blending with early morning commuters. Our plan was simple. Observe, document, and avoid detection. But simple didn't mean safe. The first stop was the cafe where Kyle had been photographed meeting a man in a dark suit weeks ago. I needed to see patterns: who came and went, what vehicles were parked, how long conversations lasted. Emily followed instructions perfectly, recording faces, car plates, and snippets of overheard conversations on her phone, all while pretending to sip coffee casually. It didn't take long to notice a trend. Kyle met with the same set of people, 3 men and a woman, at the same locations repeatedly: cafes, parking garages, and quiet backstreets. Their interactions were coded, subtle gestures and exchanges of small packages, always under the guise of normality. "We're onto something?" I whispered, scanning the street. "But we need proof. Hard evidence. Not just photos." Emily nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the camera app. "I can follow one of them discreetly," she suggested. We chose the woman. She always arrived first, seemingly scouting the area, almost like a lookout. Emily tailed her from a safe distance, recording her movements. I stayed behind the cafe, eyes glued to Kyle, ready to capture any interaction that seemed suspicious. Minutes stretched into hours. The woman led Emily down an alley and exchanged a small envelope with a man on a motorcycle. Emily captured it all on camera. My heart pounded. This was the evidence we needed. Clear, undeniable, concrete. Suddenly, a shadow fell over me. I spun around to see a man in a black hoodie, unfamiliar but deliberate in his movements. Before I could react, he whispered, "You shouldn't be here." I froze. The air felt electric, charged with immediate danger. He stepped closer, eyes cold and calculating. I realized then that our presence had been noticed. "We're just tourists," I said, trying to sound casual, though my voice shook. The man didn't flinch. "You're involved now," he said softly, "and involvement has consequences." My stomach dropped. I recognized the tone, the same calm menace from the man in the suit. This network was watching. Every move we made was being tracked. I motioned to Emily, who had been following the woman. She froze as I tugged her sleeve. "Back, now." We ducked into a side street, hearts racing, adrenaline flooding our veins. Our hands shook as we reviewed the footage on Emily's phone. Every angle, every detail was there, proof. But we also realized one horrifying truth. The network wasn't just observing Kyle. They were observing us. Every step, every choice. "They're everywhere," Emily whispered. "And we're in the middle of it," I replied grimly. We knew then that the stakes were higher than we imagined. One misstep, one wrong move, and it wouldn't just be Kyle who caught us, it would be the entire network. And somewhere in the shadows, I knew they were already planning their next move. We barely had time to catch our breath before the first strike hit. It started subtly, a knock at the warehouse door. 3 slow, deliberate raps. My heart lurched. Emily froze beside me, eyes wide. "Stay calm," I whispered, gripping the gun tighter. The knocks continued, rhythmic, menacing. Then came a low voice from outside. "Lena, Emily, we know you're in there." It was neither Kyle nor the man in the suit. This was someone else. Trained, patient, methodical. "We can't let them in," I muttered, motioning for Emily to hide. We barricaded the door with a heavy metal shelf, our breathing loud in the confined space. Outside, footsteps circled. Then a heavy impact. Someone was testing the door, trying to force it open. Emily whimpered, "They're going to break in." "Not if we're faster," I said, my mind racing. I grabbed a brick from the side of the building, preparing to defend us. The intruders tried another tactic. The warehouse windows. Shadows moved across the glass, searching, calculating. I realized they were probing for weak points like predators testing a cage. "We have to leave," I hissed. "Now." Emily nodded. Together, we slipped through a back exit I'd noticed earlier, moving silently into the alley behind the warehouse. Every step echoed. Every shadow seemed alive. Then it happened. A flare of light blinded us from above. A drone, hovering silently, a camera pointed straight at us. They were watching, anticipating, guiding their strike. I yanked Emily into a narrow side street. "Split up," I whispered. "We'll confuse them." She hesitated, but I pushed her gently. "Trust me, we need to survive." We ran in opposite directions, the drone following Emily while I doubled back. The streets were empty, eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of technology tracking our every move. A shot rang out behind me, not aimed at me yet, but enough to make me dive behind a dumpster. My chest heaved, my mind racing. Emily screamed, not in fear, but in instinctive reaction, and I froze, listening. I realized then that the network didn't just want to observe or intimidate. They wanted to force us into mistakes. And every misstep would be costly. From the shadows, a figure emerged, masked, moving with lethal precision. I raised the gun, but my hands shook. He lunged, fast, almost too fast to react. We collided, a struggle that felt endless. I barely managed to push him away and dart into another alley. My legs burned, lungs screamed, but I kept moving, knowing that stopping wasn't an option. Minutes later, we regrouped at a prearranged safe house, a rundown apartment Emily had discovered weeks ago. Both of us shaken, bruised, but alive. "This is getting worse," Emily gasped, sitting on the floor. "Much worse," I said, staring at the walls as if they might speak. "And we have to be ready. The network is no longer just watching. They're attacking." Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. But inside, we knew the game had escalated. And the next strike would be closer. The safe house felt anything but safe. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren made Emily jump. My hands were still shaking from the encounter in the alley, my mind replaying every second. "We can't stay here long," I said, pacing. "They know where we are. They're adapting." Emily nodded silently, scanning the cracked window with wide, fearful eyes. Then my phone buzzed, unknown number. I froze. "It's him," Emily whispered, voice trembling. The message read, "Nice moves, but you're slow. The next lesson is coming. Don't fail." No signature, no indication of who exactly sent it. But the implication was clear. The network, Kyle, the man in the suit, all of them were involved. Watching, manipulating, and preparing the next attack. I realized then that the envelope, the photographs, the warnings, they were all part of a controlled game. We weren't just surviving Kyle anymore. We were pawns in a much larger operation. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first real strike began. A vehicle screeched outside. Headlights cut through the darkness. Figures emerged from the shadows. Multiple people, moving with synchronized precision. They split into teams, approaching the apartment from different directions. "They're surrounding us?" I whispered, heart hammering. Emily clutched my arm. "What do we do?" I had no choice. I grabbed the remaining gun, motioned to her. "Stay behind me. Follow my lead." We moved to a hidden exit in the back, one I discovered when scouting the building earlier. But before we could leave, the door burst open. Masked figures stormed in, fast, professional, lethal. They weren't just trying to scare us. They were trained, armed, and ruthless. I fired a warning shot, and they ducked, regrouped, but didn't retreat. One lunged at me, and I barely managed to shove him into the wall. Emily screamed, but I grabbed her, pulling her toward the back exit. And then the man in the suit appeared, calm, composed, like nothing was wrong. "Impressive," he said quietly. "But you're still slow." He moved with terrifying efficiency, taking down two of the attackers in a single, fluid motion. I could barely keep up with his speed. "Follow me," he instructed, nodding toward a hidden staircase leading below the building. We descended into darkness, the sounds of pursuit echoing above us. The air was damp, heavy, and smelled of dust and oil. Emily clung to me, silent and terrified. "Who are they?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we're about to find out how deep this goes." As we reached the underground corridor, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about Kyle's schemes anymore. This was a network of people, connections, and power beyond anything we'd imagined. And the man in the suit, he wasn't just a savior. He was part of it all. "We have to be ready," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. "The final move is coming, and we can't fail." Behind us, the sounds of chaos continued above. And for the first time, I understood the true scope of the danger we were in. This wasn't a fight we could predict. It was a war, and we were in the middle of it. The safe house felt anything but safe. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren made Emily jump. My hands were still shaking from the encounter in the alley, my mind replaying every second. "We can't stay here long," I said, pacing. They know where we are. They're adapting. Emily nodded silently, scanning the cracked window with wide, fearful eyes. Then my phone buzzed, unknown number. I froze. It's him, Emily whispered, voice trembling. The message read, "Nice moves, but you're slow. The next lesson is coming. Don't fail." No signature, no indication of who exactly sent it. But the implication was clear. The network, Kyle, the man in the suit, all of them were involved. Watching, manipulating, and preparing the next attack. I realized then that the envelope, the photographs, the warnings, they were all part of a controlled game. We weren't just surviving Kyle anymore. We were pawns in a much larger operation. Hours later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the first real strike began. A vehicle screeched outside. Headlights cut through the darkness. Figures emerged from the shadows. Multiple people, moving with synchronized precision. They split into teams, approaching the apartment from different directions. "They're surrounding us?" I whispered, heart hammering. Emily clutched my arm. "What do we do?" I had no choice. I grabbed the remaining gun, motioned to her. "Stay behind me. Follow my lead." We moved to a hidden exit in the back, one I'd discovered when scouting the building earlier. But before we could leave, the door burst open. Masked figures stormed in, fast, professional, lethal. They weren't just trying to scare us. They were trained, armed, and ruthless. I fired a warning shot, and they ducked, regrouped, but didn't retreat. One lunged at me, and I barely managed to shove him into the wall. Emily screamed, but I grabbed her, pulling her toward the back exit. And then the man in the suit appeared, calm, composed, like nothing was wrong. "Impressive," he said quietly. "But you're still slow." He moved with terrifying efficiency, taking down 2 of the attackers in a single, fluid motion. I could barely keep up with his speed. "Follow me," he instructed, nodding toward a hidden staircase leading below the building. We descended into darkness, the sounds of pursuit echoing above us. The air was damp, heavy, and smelled of dust and oil. Emily clung to me, silent and terrified. "Who are they?" she whispered. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we're about to find out how deep this goes." As we reached the underground corridor, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about Kyle's schemes anymore. This was a network of people, connections, and power beyond anything we'd imagined. And the man in the suit, he wasn't just a savior. He was part of it all. "We have to be ready," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. "The final move is coming, and we can't fail." Behind us, the sounds of chaos continued above. And for the first time, I understood the true scope of the danger we were in. This wasn't a fight we could predict. It was a war, and we were in the middle of it. We emerged from the underground corridor into a massive, dimly lit warehouse. The space was filled with crates, surveillance monitors, and people moving with military precision. My heart sank. This was the command center, the nerve hub of Kyle's network. Emily clung to me, eyes wide. "We're inside their base?" she whispered. Before I could answer, the man in the suit stepped forward, flanked by armed operatives. His calm demeanor was terrifying. "Welcome," he said, voice low, controlled. "You've made it farther than most. But survival isn't just about avoiding danger. It's about understanding it." I gripped the gun, keeping it raised. "What do you want from us?" He smiled faintly. "I want you to see the truth. Kyle is not the leader you think he is. He's a tool, a pawn in a game much larger than your personal drama. And you are pieces on the board too." Suddenly, Kyle appeared from behind a stack of crates. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by cold calculation. "You made it this far," he said almost admiringly. "But this is where it ends." Emily whispered, trembling. "They're all in on it." The man in the suit raised a hand, and a large screen flickered to life. Monitors showed live feeds from multiple locations. Every place Kyle had operated, every accomplice, every move we'd made. Our apartment, the alleyway, the cafe, everything was under surveillance. "Everything is connected," he said. "Every choice, every reaction. It's all part of the system. And now you understand why I helped you. Because even pawns can become threats if they learn the rules fast enough. I realized then, this wasn't just a network of criminals. This was a structured, global operation with Kyle as one small part, and the man in the suit orchestrating everything. He had pulled strings the entire time, letting us think we had a chance to fight back, all while testing us. Kyle stepped closer. You think you're clever, Lena. You think you can stop this. But you've only learned the surface. The man in the suit suddenly raised a small device. Lights flickered, and a countdown began on the screens. 10, 9. Emily screamed, panic-stricken. What is that? A lesson, the man replied. Survival isn't free. Instinctively, I grabbed Emily and dove toward a side exit I'd noticed on the monitors earlier. Kyle lunged, but I was faster. The man in the suit didn't move to stop us, almost like he wanted to see if we'd make it. We burst through the exit and into the night. Alarms blared behind us, lights scanning the streets. But we kept running, hearts pounding. Finally, we reached a secluded bridge. I paused, gasping for breath, looking at Emily. We made it out, she whispered. I shook my head. Not yet. We survived this encounter. But the network is still out there. And the man in the suit? He's still controlling everything we don't see. We're not safe. Not yet. Then, Emily's eyes widened as she pointed. Across the river, a figure in a dark suit watched us from the shadows, calm, composed, almost smiling. And I understood the truth. The game never ends. Kyle, the network, the man in the suit, all pieces of a puzzle we had only begun to glimpse. Next time, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. We play on our terms. But even as we disappeared into the night, I knew survival had come at a cost, and the world we had stumbled into was darker, larger, and far more dangerous than anything we could have imagined. The final move wasn't over, it had only begun.